Hello students, now we will start with new topic that is about population interactions. In case of ecosystem, the living organisms which are being existed in the ecosystem, they interact with each other for their survival. And these types of interactions are explained with different terms like mutualism, competition, predation, parasitism, commensalism, and amensalism. These are the 6 types of population interactions. Out of these 6 types, in case of mutualism, both species are benefited. Both species are benefited. We are using a symbol to express that benefit nature as species A and species B. So we will indicate with plus mark, means both are benefited. In case of competition, both are lost. There is no benefit. They may exist, but there will be some drawback. So here we are indicating with minus signature. In case of predation, one will be benefited, another will be non-benefited. One will be benefited, other will be lost or non-benefited. So we are indicating with plus and minus signature. In case of parasitism also, one will be benefited, other will not be benefited. So one will be benefited, other will be lost or non-benefited. So again we are indicating with plus and minus signatures. In case of commensalism, one will be benefited, other will be neutral. It is neither benefited nor lost. So one benefited, other will be neutral. So we are indicating this one with plus and 0. Coming to amensalism. Here one is neither benefited nor lost, means mostly we can say it is not benefited, and other is again neutral. It is neither benefited nor lost. So one is not benefited, other is lost or neutral, we can say neither benefited nor lost. So these are the important terms 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6. These are the 6 types of population interactions. We will see one by one, each about mutualism, competition, predation, parasitism, commensalism and amensalism. Out of all these 6 types of population interactions, competition, predation and parasitism, these are considered to be having little close relations. So these 3, competition, predation and parasitism, are considered to be closely related. Mutualism. As we have said before, here both the organisms will be benefited. Both species are benefited. Here we can take many examples. So the first priority goes to first organisms. Those are lichens. Lichens are a mutual associates of algae and fungi. Is of algae plus fungi. These both are mutually supporting each other. Fungi will be at the bottom area, which is for decomposing and absorbing the nutrient material. Algae part of the lichen will be on the topmost position to means carry on the photosynthesis and prepare the food material. Second example is mycorrhizae, which is existed as an ecto and endoparasite in the roots of pinus. Mycorrhizae fungus as ecto and ectomycorrhizae and endomycorrhizae in roots of pinus. So how these both are mutually supporting each other? Mycorrhizae helps in fixing nitrogen from the air because the area where these pinus plants are grown is of nitrogen deficient. So mycorrhizae will fix nitrogen and will provide nitrogen to the pinus plant. Pinus plant in return gives the required carbohydrate biomolecule or the instant ready-made energy biomolecules to mycorrhiza for its survival. We can say pinus plant is providing the carbohydrate organic biomolecules to the mycorrhizae for its existence. So these both are considered to be example under mutualism. Next, third example we can say plants plus animals which are behaving as pollinators. So animals which are pollinators. We have different terms like ornithophils, entomophils, zoophils, etc. Different types of organisms are behaving as pollinators in different steps of the plant life cycle. So next one, another example we can say Hypanthodium plus wasp, that is blastophaga. Hypanthodium plus wasp. That wasp name is blastophaga. So Hypanthodium, we know that it is a fig fruit obtained from the ficus plants, and the wasp will lay its eggs only in the Hypanthodium gall flowers, and this one will provide nourishment for the developing larvae. At the same time, it gets support for the pollination by the wasp which has entered into the fig fruit. Next, another example is pseudocopulation in Ophrys. Ophrys is a type of bee orchid. So, pseudocopulation in Ophrys plant. Ophrys plant is nothing but also called as bee orchid. What happens here? This orchid has female flower and it has male flower. Nothing but here we can say antheridium which has pollen grains. So this one is modified into female wasp body shape. Second interaction is competition. Here we see two different terms, that is interspecific competition and intraspecific competition. Interspecific competition is the competition between two different species for the available food resources. It is competition between two different species for available resources. Intraspecific competition is competition between same species in an population for available limited resources. Here we are using just available resources, but in case of intra-specific competition, we are mentioning the term like limited, available limited resources. Mostly here, the organisms will be of interspecific only. Mostly, organisms are of this. That is interspecific competition or interspecific interaction. We can also use the term. Rarely intraspecific competition or intraspecific interactions. So this is rare. So here also we can see some of the examples like flamingos, having competition with that of some local residential fishes of South American lakes. Some resident fishes of South American lakes. So both of them have competition for zooplanktons. Both have competition for zooplanktons. But still both are existing in nature since a long time. Next one. Abingdon tortoise in Galapagos Islands and also goats for grass. So this is first example. Second example. Abingdon tortoise in Galapagos Islands plus goats in the same islands. Here, both have competition for grass, but both are still being existed. So, there was one principle explained by Mr. George Goss that he said he is one of the ecologists. He said that when two organisms are having competition, the recessive one will be extincted, only the dominant one will be survive. But that was later said as it is false by the later scientists. So, there was a principle given by Goss. You'll write his name. George Goss. An ecologist gave a principle that when two organisms have competition for same resource, only the dominant exists and recessive one perishes. But this was not accepted by later scientists. What they told is, if this happens, many of the species in the ecosystem will be extincted by now. But the organisms have developed a special feature called as coexistence. Because of that only, many biodiversity are being still existed in the ecosystem. Goss principle was not accepted by later ecologists. They said that special feature called coexistence is adopted by living organisms due to behavioral differences in search of food. So, the organisms have developed a coexistence nature. This is termed as resource partitioning. This is termed as resource partitioning. So, Gauss principle was not accepted by the later scientists. Other example is about barnacles. Barnacles are of two types in intertidal area of Scotland waters. What are those two types? One is superior barnacles having competition with small barnacles. These are also called as balanus. These are called as cathameles. So these have competition for same type of resource. Both have competition on aquatics and also on zooplanktons. But here what is happening? This superior barnacle is only getting benefited. It is making the small barnacles to get extincted. This is, we can say, this is one type of special competition between intra-specific type of interactions or intra-specific type of competition. So here, this is having benefit only for a short period. Later, when the food resource is extincted, then automatically this also after some time gets perished. So this is about competition type of population interactions, predation type of population interactions. Here we can say that predators maintain biodiversity. Predators maintain biodiversity. Now, here there are many examples that predators, they depend on the prey for their food material. Predators depend on prey for food. There are many examples under predation type of population interactions, that is herbivores which are predating on plants. So we can say here this is getting benefited, this is not getting benefited. Means it is not completely lost, because if one type of plant or one species, few plants are being eaten by herbivores, some other plants of the same species still will be alive. Next, another example, this is one. Second one, sparrow which is getting benefited, and grains which are eaten by sparrow are not getting benefited. Another example is prickly cactus. So this was introduced in 1920s in Australia. There was no local predator in Australia when this type of plant was introduced in Australia. At the time it became a big vast in population, and this became predating all the local species. At that time a wasp was introduced. It is nothing but Cactoblastic cacta neurum. This type of Cactanum. This type of wasp was introduced to kill this prickly cactus. So prickly cactus in 1920s in Australia was a big problem due to absence of local predator. So this was killed, or this was removed by help of a moth called Cactoblastic cactonum. So this is one type of competition between the prickly cactus and also the local type of species that are existed in Australia during the time period of 1920s. Another example we can take starfish. Starfish, it is a predator. We call it as disaster. So it is predator on many aquatic species. Was predator on many aquatic species. So when government has taken some steps to control these types of starfishes, after its controlling, then it was observed that nearly more than 10 varieties of species have been already extincted because of the predation by starfishes in the aquatics, in the marine water. So there are many such types of predators which are causing the extinction of other biodiversity. So what happened? In evolution, even the prey is also developing some of the adaptations for their existence. They are trying to escape from the predators. Prey also tries to escape from predator by adaptations like camouflage, poisoning, next distasteful of their body, etc. We will see some of the examples under camouflage, poisoning, distasteful of the body by butterflies. Here we can write by butterflies, etc. First one, camouflage. If you take this type of adaptation, organisms or prey changes its outer body color according to surroundings. Like some types of lizards, some types of frogs, etc. Another one, poisoning of body. This is exhibited by some poisonic frogs. It attained such nature at larval stage by eating poisonic weeds. Next one, you can take a distasteful of the body by butterflies. Some types of butterflies have converted their internal body organs into distasteful types of structures so that birds cannot eat them. So, birds are not predating such species. We have many different types of such adaptations, like other adaptations by plants is secretion of caffeine, nicotine. Next, morphine by opium, etc. as defense mechanisms. Defense mechanisms. This is about the predation. There are some other examples, like the poisonic nature by Calotropis is by producing cardiac glycosides. It causes abnormal heart contractions and also irregular potassium and calcium influx and effluxes in the nerves. So this cardiac glycosides causes abnormal heart contractions and irregular sodium and calcium influx and efflux, so that person dies of heart failure. Next type of population interaction is parasitism. Here, the parasite harms the host and completely depends on host. There are some types of parasites that are facultative parasites, but here we are talking about only the complete parasites. Completely depends on host. So, parasites does not have digestive system, but have high capacity of reproduction. Very high reproduction capacity. Mostly, these parasites are host specific. Most parasites are host specific. Now, some parasites, they take 2 hosts to complete their lifespan. Some parasites take 2 hosts for their reproduction completion. We will see some of the examples. Malarial parasite, that is Plasmodium. All types of Plasmodium vivax, Plasmodium falciparum, etc. These types of parasites, they include primary host, that is female Anopheles mosquito, and secondary host, that is man. Primary host in the sense, in case of primary host, the developmental stages will complete their complete development in the primary host. In case of secondary host, they will undergo sexual reproduction and also they will create the new types of new offsprings. This is one example. Another one, Eukarya bancrofti. Eukarya bancrofti. This one causes elephantiasis. This one causes Plasmodium causes malarial fever. This one causes elephantiasis or filariasis or eukaryiasis. Filariasis. This one include, here the terms will be changed a little bit. That is, it includes definitive host, that is man. Man harbors adult form of eukarya. Means this host harbors adult form. Next, intermediate host. Intermediate host harbors the larval form. So, the infective stage of eukarya for human being, it will be microfilaria. That is third larval form. Third stage of larval form. So, intermediate host is female Culex mosquito. Another example is liver fluke. Liver fluke. Its primary host is sheep and secondary host is snail. There is another type of parasitism exhibited by quail. That is called as brood parasitism. By quail which lays eggs in a crow's nest. This is called as brood parasitism. Parasites are of two types, Ectoparasites and Endoparasites. One is Ectoparasites, which does not enter inside the body, but they harm just the outermost surfaces of the body. Here examples we can take as lice, which are in the hair of human beings. Next, ticks, which are on the animal body, dogs and cats, etc. Mites and copypodes, which are on fishes. What are copypodes? These are a type of crustaceans. A type of crustaceans which are surviving or harming the fishes, aquatic fishes. Another example we can say Cuscuta, parasite on hedge plants. What are hedge plants? Hedge plants are those which are compactly planted, means very nearby planted, and they appear as means thick shrubs or herb-like structure, bushy-like nature. So these hedge plants are nearby planted and planted in a line like bushes and shrubs. This Cuscuta, we can call it as obligate parasite, completely depends on the host plant for its survival. Next type is Endoparasites, which completely enters into the animal body or plant body and they completely harm. They will not prepare their own food material, completely depends on the host for their survival. So here we can take examples like viruses, typhoid bacteria, that is Salmonella species. Next, Nematihelminthes and Platyhelminthes, all types of helminths. These are considered as the examples of parasitism. Next type of population interaction is commensalism. Here, one is benefited, other is neutral. It is neither benefited nor harmed. So here we see two types of cell. This is species A and this is species B, which is neutral. We can take some of the examples like monarch butterflies, which feed on milkweed. So here we have to use a symbol like 0. Okay. In case of monarch butterflies, these are benefited. There is no harm for milkweed. Another example is cattle egret birds. Cattle egret birds. Here we can consider these birds as cranes. What is meant by egret? Egret is a small white colored flies when the cattle is moving on the grass. Then because of the disturbance, some white colored flowers will be moving up. Those are called as egrets. These cranes will come nearby to eat those egrets or small insects. Small white insects. So the birds that are coming are getting benefited, but there is no harm for the grazing cattle. There is no harm. Another example we can take barnacles on the host. These are getting benefited. They are taking food material by sucking from the host. But the whales which are present in the water are not having any harm because of these barnacles. Barnacles are a type of means aquatic organisms. Another example we can take orchids, which are living as epiphytes on the plants. We can take any angiospermic large plant. We can take here example like mango or neem, we can take, etc., which is not having any harm because of the orchids that are surviving. Another example we can take remora fish. It is of just 1 feet or something, 1 to 2 feet. It resides only on the ventral side of the sharks. It is not harming the shark, but it is taking benefit by defense mechanism from the predators. Remora fish. Here, other species is sharks, which are not having any harm because of these fishes. Another example is clownfishes. So these clownfishes are getting protection from the predators by surviving in the sea anemone. Though the sea anemone tentacles are sticky, these clownfishes are not having any harm because of that stickiness. So sea anemone, that is not having any harm. Another example we can take the tree frogs which are residing on the big trees. Tree frogs which are residing on the trees. Trees are not having any harm. So this is about some examples under commensalism. Last type of population interaction is amensalism. Here, one species is harmed, other is neither harmed nor benefited. So here we'll see one is harmed, other is neither benefited nor harmed. We can take some of the examples here as insects which are getting harmed by the grazing cattle. Because of the grazing cattle only, these white color egrets are coming just to on the topmost of the grasses, so they are eaten by the birds or the cranes. Another example is penicillium. It's a type of fungus which gives penicillin antibiotic. It is not having any harm, but it is killing Staphylococcus aureus. Staphylococcus aureus, which is getting harmed. Another example is Trichoderma. Trichoderma species, which is considered as the biocontrol agent. So Trichoderma is not harmed here, but the harmed one or the killed one, because this one depends on other organism that is getting harmed, nothing but Aspergillus. Aspergillus, which is harmed. Another example we can take, that is smother crops, which are not having any harm by the weeds. So the weeds are getting harmed in case of this type of combinations. Now what are these smother crops? These smother crops that does not allow the weed to grow are those that does not allow weed to grow. Here we can take best example that we see in the gardens, that is marigold. So examples under smother crops are marigold, alfalfa, hemp plant, rye plant, and sorghum, and also foxtail millet. So these are the crops that will not allow the weeds to grow in their premises. So these are the few examples of Amensalism.